On August 12, 2022, in Chautauqua, New York, at the Chautauqua Institution, a terrible event among many occurred. World-renowned fiction novelist Salman Rushdie, provocateur, who some consider a symbol of freedom, was stabbed publicly just as he was about to give a lecture at the Chautauqua Institution on freedom of speech. Join me, your astrologer Loveless, as we look into the energies concerning the situation, Mr. Rushdie and his attacker as described by the stars. This chart was made on August 13th, 2022. Scorpio is rising here, and an easily perilous indication considering what transpired. Scorpio in this chart shows negative energy surrounding him and his identity, especially with the South Node in the first house. This sign also represents, in his case, a scandalous reputation to certain parties and the threat of danger. These parties, in his case, extremist Muslims. Indeed, Rushdie has been living under the threat of assassination for some time, largely due to the backlash from his fourth novel published in 1988, The Satanic Verses. Here lies the controversy. The book references the Satanic Verses from the Quran, and are words of satanic suggestion which the Islamic prophet Muhammad is alleged to have mistaken for divine revelation. Certain Muslims took offense to these references and other content of the novel, deeming it blasphemous, and on February 14, 1989, Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran and one of the most prominent Shia Muslim leaders, issued a fatwa. This is a legal ruling and called for the death of Rushdie and his publishers. This created a major international incident that persisted for many years. Do we see the threat of death in this chart? Let's look at Salman's planet. Mr. Rushdie is Mars in Taurus at the 8th house cusp and thus in it. The 8th house is the house of death, just as the energy of Taurus describes in this case. A fixed sign and notoriously stubborn, he has felt the threat of death for some time. Both Mars and the 8th house are joined tightly to the demon star Algol, a star associated with violence and suffering. Indeed, unfortunately, this expresses the violence he endured, 10 stab wounds which left him in critical condition. Again, he is no stranger to this energy, this mode of violence, as many people he's worked with were stabbed in retaliation to his work. Those that would oppose Rushdie and want to kill him, in this chart, are represented by Venus, ruler of the 12th house and 7th house. These are the houses of secret, aka unknown, and public, aka known, enemies. Thus, in this chart, there is a mixture of the two. He is aware of the organization against him, but unaware of the foe that would actually strike. Venus, in other words, represents the alleged young attempted murderer, Hadi Matar. Venus in Leo could represent a killer or organization from the east, possibly from a hot or tropical location, and a long-standing anger. Indeed, this fatwa against him was called from the east 33 years ago from the hot desert of Iran, and Matar lived east of Chautauqua, New York, the scene of the event in New Jersey. Venus in Leo is apparently also an extravagant anger, as Rushdie had a $3 million bounty on his head. Why did they want to kill him? We know they are upset with his writings that are perceived to be blasphemous, but with what I'm seeing, this was to make a public display, to make a statement, communicating in the most violent way possible, and end him for good, as the fatwa was originally called 33 years ago. This is shown by Venus in the 10th house, while ruling the house of death, and Venus trine Jupiter, Jupiter representing the house of communication.
We begin with breaking news. Author Salman Rushdie attacked on stage in Western New York.
Video shows people rushing to the stage to help Rushdie at Chautauqua Institution. He was about to give a lecture when police say a man stormed the stage and stabbed him in the neck.
It's said, Matar stated in an interview that he was surprised Rushdie survived. I think many were, considering he is 75 years old and was stabbed 10 times. The actual incident of the attack would be shown by Venus sextile Mars. Taurus, the sign over the house of death, rules the throat and neck, and he was predominantly wounded there. Mars, Rushdie's planet, also shows damage to the head, and it's said he may lose an eye due to this attack. This speaks of a relevant star joined to the part of fortune. Part of fortune conjunct Capulus by 39 minutes. Capulus is a double cluster of stars in the hilt of the sword, associated with weakness, blindness, and defective eyesight. Nature of Mercury and Mars. What could describe his salvation? I see several indications. Sextiles, the sextile aspect indicating the attack against him, are considered weak, describing more so potentiality than the definite, and this is fortunate for Rushdie. Even though the sextile here is a bit strong, as Mars in Taurus is subject to a degree to the will of Venus, ultimately, it was not enough energy to indicate an immediate certain death. This is one major reason I see explaining why he lived. Another are more considerations of Venus. Venus is a planet that is inclined to indicate good, and I feel that there would need to be more here to show a certain fatality. Venus is also placed weakly in this chart, another suggestion of being unsuccessful, and the 10th house that it is in is a boon for Rushdie. The 10th house is fortunate for Rushdie, with the Sun in Leo here. This is great success from creative efforts, assistance from the public and authorities, and some may say, assistance from the divine. Venus, the alleged attempted killer, as a guest in Leo, is subject to this fortunate energy. I see this as saying, all things considered, due to the public nature of this event, which only happened because of his successful career, he was amongst those that would readily help him, ensuring a successful outcome to their best ability. Matar tried to keep stabbing Rushdie, but was restrained by his supporters and ultimately apprehended by the authorities. Mars with the part of fortune in the North Node, these 2 points influencing the House of Death, are also suggestions of good luck and assistance here. Lastly, another important consideration is Sun opposition Saturn. The Sun represents success for Rushdie, and Saturn represents potential success of his foes. I also believe Saturn indicates the legacy of Khomeini. The Sun is much stronger in this chart than Saturn, and thus Rushdie would prevail. As you can see, there are many indications of fortunate energy towards him than there are of certain death. Essentially, Rushdie was saved by the public and authorities, and I think that is clear here as well in this chart. He was also saved by his career and eminence, which granted him protection by those who admired him. Though his life-changing injuries are severe, his usual feisty and defiant sense of humor remains intact. His son, Zafar Rushdie, said on Twitter, "We are so grateful to all the audience members who bravely leapt to his defense and administered first aid, along with the police and doctors who have cared for him, and for the outpouring of love and support around the world." Moving forward, I do have concern about his recovery, as he was stabbed 10 times, and Mars is doing badly in this chart, approaching the 8th house. In another statement, Rushdie's agent Andrew Wiley told the New York Times, "The road to recovery has begun. It will be long, the injuries are severe, but his condition is headed in the right direction." Earlier, Wiley shared that Rushdie will likely lose an eye. The nerves in his arm were severed and his liver was stabbed and damaged. Is there another boon for Rushdie in this chart here? That is to say, another source of good fortune? Indeed, there is. Mercury in Virgo in the 11th house is another blessing for Rushdie. Mercury represents, most relevant to him, other writers. This is a blessing of many supporters, especially those that are writers. Notably, Mercury is joined to the Greek lot, success. Lastly, time for a bit of tarot. I pulled a card inquiring about Rushdie moving forward. The 6 of Swords appears. Lord of earned success. Mercury and Aquarius energy. This makes me think of a writer with a community around them or lots of supporters. This card is associated with change, moving forward peacefully, healing, departure from conflict, and a task that may be accomplished with words. He should achieve success in this manner. This energy speaks to me of the Sun and Leo energy mentioned for him before, success and creative efforts. Since the attack, Rushdie's books have been top sellers on Amazon. And what of the fate of Hadi Matar? How does he move forward? The 10 of Pentacles appears, Lord of Wealth. A curious card as it is associated with great wealth, and Matar is a soon-to-be inmate. Could this be speaking of a desire for the 3 million bounty? Possibly, but we were inquiring about his fate moving forward. This card may be speaking about Rushdie. Coincidentally, just like the boon shown for Rushdie in this chart, this card is associated with Mercury in Virgo. Coincidence? I see this as saying, his action has actually caused good fortune for Rushdie after the violent attack. Another potential meaning, he will be heralded by those who are against Rushdie, particularly in a written manner. I pulled another card as I didn't think this was a satisfactory answer. The 8 of Cups appears, a card with more of the negative energy I'm sensing for him. Saturn and Pisces energy. reality conflicting with fantasy. This card is called the Lord of Abandoned Success. Here is a tarot reader's description which I found relevant. The Aquarian is dissatisfied with their lot in life. Maybe they have had some success, but it hasn't been what they thought it would be. Astrologically, let's see how he moves forward by analyzing Venus. As Venus in Leo, he is in the hands of the government and will be for some time. He and prison are also represented by the same planet. There is a strong argument of going to prison for a long time and being subjected to the will of the American government. Justice should prevail. That's my reading on Salman Rushdie. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.